coming. Certainly last night was not how any of us wanted the season to end, but unbelievably proud of the team, the coaches, entire organization. It was really an organizational commitment to try to get to where we're playing meaningful games this time of year. Just really, really proud of the season we had. We have certainly several more steps to go. We think we have the DNA of a championship-level team. It's never easy. And hats off to the Mavericks. Did a heck of a job. A very well-run organization, great players, great coaches, great front office. And just super excited about the future. And, again, just thanks to the players and coaches and our whole organization for being so wonderful this year. It was a really, really fun year, and it was the result of a lot of hard work.
There was a perception of the season and that when you guys took that trip over to Dubai or whatever, that you knew more about Dallas than they knew about you, or that type of stuff. Is there any truth to that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Dallas did such a wonderful job. The Dallas we saw in Dubai was very different than the Dallas we saw last night. I thought they had a wonderful trade deadline. Getting P.J. Washington and Gafford. It's an organization that we not just have a lot of respect for, we have a lot of, Nico's a close friend. So when you get to this point in the season, I think everyone knows each other very, very well. But it was neat to kind of be with those guys in Dubai. It was good. It was neat collectively for all of us to be in Dubai and kind of. I thought that did set the tone for our team, the kind of camaraderie and being in a foreign country, getting to know each other, and it was a fun trip, and it was the start of a fun year.
Tim, this team made a huge leap from last year to this year. What do you think is going to be the biggest key to make the next step now from being in the Western Conference Finals and contention to really, going for the finals?
I think when you're a home court team and a Final Four team, I think all those teams can win a championship. So I don't know if there's any linear path to that next step. I don't think there's one singular answer. I think a lot of it's matchups and health. I think if you look at the series we just had, certainly not at 4-1, but if you look back at games 1 and 2, I thought we had a pretty good opportunity to win those games. So just keep getting better. I think the really neat thing is when you play this long and play this much meaningful basketball is the guys really know what it's like. They can feel those moments. There's certainly areas we have to get better. The roster's never perfect, and we got to continue to build and both build externally and internally. Our guys got to come back as better players. I think the hunger that environments like this create, you'll see a lot of these guys come back even more hungry and more aggressive. But I don't know if I have a specific answer about that next step. I think I'm a pretty firm believer when you're in the Final Four, you got a chance.
The payroll is going to get bigger next season, and how do you anticipate navigating that, and what are the conversations like given the ownership situation is kind of in flux right now?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been unbelievably supportive. I think everyone, ownership's obviously in a unique place right now, but all involved have really enjoyed this, and we've all shared great moments throughout this whole season, and the fun that everyone's had in the playoffs has been really special. So there are conversations that we've had, and they'll be ongoing. Now that we're officially in the offseason, we'll get a better sense of not just what we might do, but what the rest of the league might do. I think anytime you're a Final Four team, it kind of is reflective of a strong roster, and we're fortunate enough to have the vast majority of our guys signed up for next year, which is always a good thing, especially in a market that at times has not attracted some of the premier free agents like some of these other markets. So ownership has been unbelievably supportive. It's whatever happens, it's kind of a level up. So I trust whatever happens will be the right path. But during this last several weeks, it's been awesome to see everyone in ownership, and not just the names you hear, but some of the minority owners. And it's been a really fun ride, and it's been really fun to see those people have put so much time, effort, and money into this and enjoy a postseason run.
When you were in Denver, continuity played a big part of your success in not making kind of quick fix moves or the flashy move to really build a contender. When you look at this team right now, and you mentioned having your top 7 guys under contract for next season, do you see something similar here where you just want to let this group grow together, have another year, and see what can happen instead of maybe trying to make a move or something to alter the chemistry of what you have going on?
Yeah, I think optimally, if given the two options, we'd always err on the side of patience and continuity, and we've been fortunate with ownership has allowed that. After coming off last season, ownership allowed us to see what we had this year, and then we had a pretty successful run. So we have all these plans, but they go out the window if you get one call. So it would be disingenuous to say that we have some well-laid plans. We have well-laid theoretical plans, but the fluidity of the marketplace changes things rapidly. And, we'll be aggressive and nimble. But, again, I think patience is oftentimes most rewarded if you're allowed to do so.
Along those lines, with Karl, he had some really nice moments for you this postseason, struggle at the beginning of this series. Did you see enough out of him that he could be, the 1A, 1B, number 2, whatever you want to call it, option on a team that could win an NBA title? Yeah,
absolutely. I thought Karl was brilliant for most of the playoffs. He had some tough shooting nights in this last series, but that didn't dictate his intensity or his ability to do other things. And we're not here without Karl. I mean, the maturity that Karl showed in the playoffs, I thought was one of the greatest things that we all saw. I mean, he's been through so much. He's been through 20 of me and 20 head coaches. And for him, his productivity is natural, right? He's an unbelievably skilled player. But for him to not just produce, but produce with a really emotionally mature way, I thought it was a huge step. And I could be more proud of Karl.
This team, this offense was really reliant on Mike and his presence and his
Could you
help.
identify yourself, please? Yeah.
No. This season, what do you see, assuming you maybe would want to lean on him a little bit less next year, next couple of years of this contract, do you see internal development being the path to maybe providing another perimeter playmaker who can maybe ease some of that burden, or is that an outside acquisition? How do you view that?
Yeah, we're open to both. I think certainly we have to, especially where we are financially, we have to promote within. We have to have some internal improvement. When you have this many good players who've deservedly so get these huge contracts, you can't always look elsewhere. But we'll look at both. We have the 27, 37 pick, pretty excited about that. We have a bunch of young guys in the roster who haven't gotten a big opportunity. We're getting better and better every day. And certainly drafts and free agency. So we all wish Mike was ageless, and he certainly appeared as though he was ageless much of this year. But we understand there has to be some succession plan as we move forward.
Jace Frederick, Pioneer Press. This roster has gone pretty defensive in its slant, and obviously that led to the top defense in the league. Do you think there needs to be any shift towards the middle, or do you think that this team can just be good offensively with who you have?
I think our offense is great. We didn't turn the ball over. I think we have the best offensive coach in the NBA. So I again, not to dodge questions, I don't think anything's black and white. When you have a team with Anthony Edwards, Karl Towns, Naz Reid, you're going to be a pretty good offensive team. Rudy's been on top 5 offensive teams in Utah. Now, ideally, we want to have guys that both complement and protect our core elite guys. So we'll look to improve in those areas. But I think that our biggest struggle offensively was turn the ball over. When we valued the ball, I think we're a very good offensive team.
Jace Frederick's caddy. Earlier today, Chris said he'd love to have Kyle back. Kyle said he'd like to be back. Kyle's the only guy who hasn't signed among your top 8. Is it realistic that you can bring all 8 of your top players back? Is it realistic financially?
We'd love to have Kyle back. I mean, he's not just a great player; he's a great guy. His voice and his toughness is hugely important to who we are. So, again, you never know what's going to happen, not going to happen. But we'd love to have Kyle back, and we're not here without Kyle.
Tim, when Chris was in here, he was asked about Ant. He was talking about how he's not a big fan of the heliocentric type of offenses, and he referenced more of the vision of Jokic and Murray, maybe with Cat and Ant as a vision for the offense going forward. You built that team there. That was more of a corner offense type team. Do you feel to build that type of offense here, you can do that with internal pieces, or what are the type of pieces? What are the things that are missing to run that type of offense here?
I think it's tough to compare anybody to Nikola, and I didn't do anything. I was lucky enough to be part of his staff and lucky enough to be around great coaches and great players. But Ant and Nikola, in my strong opinion, will both be first ballot Hall of Famers. We got to keep challenging Ant. Obviously, he's got a long way to go, but I think they're very unique, and I don't think what they have in common is unique. Elite talent. They're excellent and very positive teammates. But stylistically, I don't know if it's a fair comp to either or. But what they both make other teammates better, both with their playmaking, with their ability to score, and also just pumping them up with their words. So, when you have a Chris Finch-led team, our offense is probably the least of our concerns. But to your question, we still have to as much as possible, identify guys that can both help and protect Ant. There's no such thing as a perfect player, and I think this year has been really helpful for us to be a little more aware of what exactly complements him best. But I think it's a tough comp. Hopefully the comp is we can both win a championship at some point, but both really, really good players.
It's your job to balance financial responsibility and sustained excellence on the court. After the season you've had, where are you on that continuum right now? Is it something where you're more likely to be spendy, for lack of a better word? Or is it, how do you sustain your personnel and your plan and at the same time acknowledge the new reality of the NBA?
Yeah, I think we have to be cognizant of how big the table we're at. Oftentimes, the Final Four table comes with a price tag that's different than teams that aren't playing this late in the season. And certainly, whatever ownership allows, we're going to be committed and aggressive. I think when you get a taste of it, you want more and more. So that'll be something we discuss with ownership. It's also something that we're pretty aware, to a large degree, to be where we are. It's going to come with a certain check, and I think by all accounts, ownership has given us no indication we're going to be anything but aggressive and try to get over one more hump. We got over a big hump after 20 years this year, but we're certainly not content.
You've walked your talk in terms of high character guys. How important is that in terms of building a team? Where do you put that in the bag of things you necessarily need to have, and how do you balance that out with just pure talent?
I think it's unbelievably important. I think we can't control wins and losses. For all these great wins, if a shot doesn't go in, a shot goes in, we're having a press conference weeks ago. Or if a call goes our way, we might have a press conference right now. So I think the only thing controllable is the environment you create within the building, and I think it's something that we'll always certainly put on the top of our list now. Elite talent oftentimes trumps all, but elite talent without the ability to be an excellent teammate, without the ability to be self-motivated and committed, without the ability to be happy in Minnesota, it's kind of a glass ceiling. So it's something that we feel pretty passionately about and we'll never deviate from.
Tim, you say that you're super excited for the future over here, Tim. Does that future include you, not only next year, but for the next handful of years?
I hope so. I mean, moving wasn't fun. So optimally, I can't leave. This press crew is pretty impressive. I mean, got the fake Orioles hat over there, and Chase dressed up as usual. Chris has shorts on, so it'd be a tough crew to leave. Now I've had a blast here. It feels like we have roots here. Like our whole fan base, all you guys. It was pretty special. I mean, that Denver Game 7 was about as cool as environment I've ever seen. Not the win, but the amount of T-Wolves fans that made the trip. So, yeah, that's the goal. It's been a great couple of years, and hope we can make it a much longer couple of years.
More from me, Chris, before you hop in. Right, yeah. In February, it seemed like a shrewd move to bring in Monte Morris. Why didn't it play out as such?
You never know when you make a trade. I mean, Monte was, I think, struggling with a couple injuries. Certainly, I have no doubt what Monte can do. I think when you start to make the run, the benches get more and more condensed. So it's tough to make a midseason trade and to instantly integrate that guy. But I love Monte. I know exactly who he is as a guy and a player. And, it was great to have him here this year. And, we know what he can do both on and off the court.
There's a lot of talks ever since the second apron became part of the NBA lexicon here the last year or so. You guys are headed there if you try to keep this core together. How do you view, just maybe philosophically, life as a potential second apron team and the damage, the punitive measures that come with it, and how long you can be a potential second apron team realistically?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of unknown. It's certainly the biggest concern is where you are financially, right? So it's a big task for ownership. It's a lot of money, but relative to the impact on our flexibility, I think the jury's still out. I think there's been so much talk about it, but until you get through a couple of deal cycles, I'm not sure how impactful it's. Now it's not a place you want to be long term, as it gets more and more harsh each year, but relative to dipping your toe in it, I think it potentially could have relatively limited impact on what we can and cannot do. But we're still learning it, just like the other 29 teams. It's a very it was one of those things put in kind of out of nowhere. No one saw it coming. So it's been fun to learn, but we haven't, I don't think, seen the full impact of it as of yet because it's relatively novel.
What did you learn about this team that you didn't know at the beginning of the season?
I mean, when we sat down with you guys, whenever that was ago, our biggest concern was emotional control and our ability to produce when the lights were the brightest. And I thought this year we took a huge step emotionally. And then I thought we were in pressure pack situations throughout the playoffs, and we really never let go of the rope. So those are the questions I had. I thought talent was never a real issue. Chris Finch and staff are fantastic. Mike Honore is going to be a great head coach. And they got a bunch of head coaches sitting on that bench, getting better and better. So I thought those boxes were checked. But until you see guys in really pressure pack situations and how not just they produce, but how do they maintain some semblance of continuity and emotional control. And I thought those boxes were both checked tremendously.
Ant is obviously not in bad shape by any stretch, but he said last night that he wants to train moving forward like he's going to play into June. Is that where you see kind of his next big step, just being in the condition to play 44 minutes a night and carry an offense and guard the other team's best player, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think he's in great shape. But that's what I love about Ant. He's not content with where he is. I think he's sub 5% body fat. It's that speaks to a guy that really takes his fitness level seriously. But I think the only thing that stinks when you lose, and this is probably not just in the NBA, but in life right now, it's either you win or you suck. Anthony Edwards had one of the best seasons ever for a 22-year-old on both ends. I think when it matters, there's not a better perimeter defender in the world than Anthony. He took an organization with his teammates that for 20 years haven't had any playoff success, and beat 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, beat the defending champs, and now had a loss to a heck of a Dallas team. So I think he was a little tired, but I don't think it was any fitness level. It was probably a bit overwhelming to go through that. This is on top of him playing with the national team last year, and USA basketball starts in 3 weeks. So whatever this season, whatever the epitaph of the season, I hope we all appreciate how special Anthony is and how much he did, and not just on the court, off the court, as a teammate in the community. I've never seen a 22-year-old do what he's done. So whatever the next step is, I'm sure it'll be unbelievable because everything up to this point has been unbelievable.